Good morning, devotees. Darshan of Shri Radha Govinda and associates. Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dirayat. Nasta Prayesvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamas Loke Bhakti Rubhavati Naistiki. So we're reading from the 5th canto, 9th chapter, text number 15. We are getting to the end of the chapter. And here is the verse. Thank you to Tarka Prabhu for always posting the verse in the chat. Again, we continue with verse written in prose. So there is no meter as far as I know. Atapanayastvam swa vidina vishichat hatena vasasachayada bhushanade pasrak tilaka dibir upaskritam bhuktavantam dupadipa malyalaja kisalayankura paro petaya vaishasa samstaya mahata gita stuti mridangapana goshenacha purusha pashumbhadra kalya purata upaveshayam masu. Synonyms: atha, thereafter; panaya, all the followers of the dacoit; tam, him, Chadabharata; swavidina, according to their own ritualistic principles; abhishitya, bathing; ahatena, with new; vasasa, garments; achadya, covering; bhushana, ornaments; alepa, smearing the body with sandalwood pulp; srak, a flower garland; tilaka adibi, with markings on the body, and so on; upaskritam, completely decorated; bhuktavantam, having eaten; dhupa, with incense; deepa, lamps; malya, garlands; laja, parched grain; kisalaya ankura, twigs and sprouts; phala, fruits; upahara, other paraphernalia; upetaya, fully equipped; vaishasa samstaya, with complete arrangements for sacrifice; mahata, great; gita stuti, of songs and prayers; mridanga, of the drums; panava, of the bugles; goshena, by vibration; cha, also; purusha pasum, the man animal; Bhadra Kalya, of the goddess Kali; Purata, just in front; Upavishayam Asu, made him sit down. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. After this, all the thieves, according to their imaginative ritual for killing animalistic men, bathed Jadabharata, dressed him in new clothes, decorated him with ornaments befitting an animal, smeared his body with scented oils, and decorated him with tilak, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. They fed him sumptuously, and then brought him before the goddess Kali, offering her incense, lamps, garlands, parched grain, newly grown twigs, sprouts, fruits, and flowers. In this way, they worshipped the deity before killing the man-animal, and they vibrated songs and prayers and played drums and bugles. Jadabharata was then made to sit down before the deity. Purport. In this verse, the word svavidhina, according to their own ritualistic principles, is very significant. According to the Vedic Shastras, everything must be done according to regulative principles. Here it is stated that the thieves and rogues devised their own process for killing an animalistic man. The Tamasic Shastras give instructions for the sacrifice of an animal like a goat or buffalo before the goddess Kali. But there is no mention of killing a man, however dull he may be. This process was manufactured by the dacoits themselves. Therefore, the word svavidhina is used. Even at this time, there are many sacrifices being conducted without reference to the Vedic scriptures. For instance, in Calcutta, recently a slaughterhouse was being advertised as a temple of the goddess Kali. Meat eaters foolishly purchased meat from such shops, thinking it different from ordinary meat and taking it to be the prasad of goddess Kali. The sacrifice of a goat or a similar animal before the goddess Kali is mentioned in Shastras just to keep people from eating slaughterhouse meat and becoming responsible for the killing of animals. The conditioned soul has a natural tendency towards sex and meat eating. Consequently, the Shastras grant them some concessions. Actually, the Shastras aim at putting an end to these abominable activities, but they impart some regulative principles so that gradually meat eaters and sex hunters will be rectified. Verse again. After this, all the thieves, according to their imaginative ritual for killing animalistic men, bathed Jadabharata, dressed them in new clothes, decorated him with ornaments befitting an animal, smeared his body with scented oils, decorated him with tilak, sandalwood pulp, and garlands. They fed him sumptuously and then brought him before the goddess Kali, offering her incense, lamps, garlands, parched grain, newly grown twigs, sprouts, fruits, and flowers. In this way, they worshipped the deity before killing the man animal, and they vibrated songs and prayers and played drums and bugles. Jadabharata was then made to sit down before the deity. Om Agyanatimirandasya Kyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanavyo Vaishnavavyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so here is the product of imagination. Just like Prabhupada quotes, the first thing he says in the purport is to refer to the word svavidhina according to their own ritualistic principles. It seems that speculation is pretty rampant in the realm of religion, just as we have these televangelists that prey on the innocent. More than innocent, I would say naive, because innocent has a benefic quality, whereas naive is different. They just want to believe. They could reason, but they rather believe the nonsense that these evangelists tell them. Like they would say, and God told me to tell you. And he calls me, he said, Jimmy, he calls me by my first name. Jimmy, you have to get people to give you money so you can buy your own jet plane. God told me that. So please, there's a number on the screen. Please call the number and send money so you can do God's will. So this is imagination. Many people say, I speak with God. Yeah, but does God talk to you, really? Or you're just talking? So it's this entire process of upadharma, which is not real religion, consists on manufacturing or accepting some other manufacture process to communicate with God. And what is the result? What is in play here? In this case, they have this burning feeling about getting rich. So the dacoits, they're thieves. They just want easy or not so easy, quick money. They don't want to work for years and save money. They rather just rob someone, kill someone, just rob a bank. That's why people commit crimes, because they don't have the patience. They're ignorant, and everybody manufactures a process, and they consider to be pleased the goal of life. So they don't care. They don't have empathy for others. And this is what the position of the dacoits is. They just have, they want quick and easy. So that's why they manufacture this process of sacrificing a man-animal. There are actually people in this world that they are like animals. Not only because they may behave like animals, but because they're very simple. They weren't endowed with a proper human intelligence. So they're very, very simple. They are like an animal. Like you can give the commands that you would give a dog. So they imagine, well, if Kali is pleased by sacrificing a goat or a buffalo, what to speak of a man animal who has no apparent purpose in life and is a burden to society, that they have to clothe them and feed them and etc. Doesn't really have a great contribution. Kali will be pleased. So they do all this ritual, offering incense and grains and twigs and sprouts and flowers and lamps. And then they kill this unsuspecting man animal who is so naive that doesn't even know what's going on. And he thinks, oh, that's nice. They bathe me, they put clothes, they put scented oils on me, they fed me. And that's what they did to Jalabharata. Of course, Jalabharata, Prabhupada says, is the most intelligent man on earth. He says that's a different purport. And he's perfectly aware, not only aware of what's going on, but he's strong enough to avoid, even though there were several dacoits that bound him with ropes, he was strong enough to fight them and not be bound. But he sees it as the mercy of the Supreme Lord and doesn't want to interfere. He's actually quite happy. Oh, okay, this is how death is going to come for me. Right. Well, let's do it. And they're going to kill me. Okay. So the Supreme Lord, if he wants me dead, he will take care of that. And if not, he will defend me. He was just absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he didn't really care. He didn't care to reveal that he wasn't dull and dumb. Of course, in the further chapters, we're going to see about him revealing his true self and preaching to Rahugana Maharaj. So this is not, but the dacoits and their chief, well, the dacoits, basically, they lost the man. The man animal that they previously trapped, run, and it was the middle of the night, and they went everywhere, and they couldn't find this person that ran away. But they found Bharata, who was sitting on a monticle, and he saw them coming. He did not react and let them take him to where there was an image of the goddess Kali. And when they were about, they had a very sharp sword, with which they were going to decapitate him. And of course, the goddess Kali is a devotee, so she couldn't tolerate the idea of a devotee being tortured, killed. So she came out of the effigy, out of the image of herself, and her eyes were shining. It was a very fearsome appearance, and she just snapped this sharp sword with which they were going to decapitate Jadabharata, and in a moment she decapitated every one of the dacoits. And then her and her associates started drinking blood right out of their heads, and they were playing with the heads as if they were balls. They were having a little party, and Jadabharata probably thought, oh, okay, I have to wait a little longer to go back to the spiritual world. Because that time it didn't happen. First of all, this process of killing an innocent man is never permitted, however dull the person may be. There are indications in the Shastra that one can kill a person that is about to kill one, or coming to pollute one's wife, or coming to burn one's house. These are people that they can be killed without consequences. Of course, depending on the law of the land, you may face some consequences. You can't just say this guy was trying to take away my wife, or he had lighter fluid to burn my house and I killed them. Is in Shastra, the police won't care about that. So it depends of the law of the land, although the Shastra is sanctions this type of retribution. So Jadabharata didn't have to do anything because he felt protected, regardless of the consequences. He felt protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom he was meditating on. So it was another day in the life for him. Of course, it was the last day in the life of the dacoits and his associates. And the process that they were singing songs and offering incense and lamps and garlands, this was all imagination. Actually, among the Hindu population, we see some of that they do rituals that they're not sanctioned in the scriptures. They're simply imagination. Then they may come due to tradition, as a family heritage. My father was doing it, my grandfather was doing it, so I'm doing it now. But they have no real basis in scriptures, and usually is considered that the noblest of all beings. They act according to the injunctions of scriptures. They don't consider themselves independent. They don't manufacture anything, and they do what's prescribed as bona fide. That is actually the process. So that's why we chant the holy names, because it's sanctioned in scriptures. It's in the Bhagavatam, it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's in the Gita, is taught by the acharyas, taught by the guru. This is the process, is recommended. Kali Santarana Upanishad and the Puranas is everywhere that one should chant the holy name. This is not an obscure reference. This is the process that is being recommended for the age of Kali. And the age of Kali is bad, very bad. So, and it's degrading. It continues to decay. As we can see, is inevitable to see that people are degrading themselves. Those who supposed to live by example and show the example to others are being arrested and caught on due to corruption and all sorts of degradation that takes place. So the leaders are bad and the followers are naive and sometimes malicious. So it's a bad combination, and the age is continue to degrade. The planet is heating up, and eventually, according to the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, it will be not inhabitable. It will be not habitable. It will be inhabitable. The sun is going to increase in power. One will be able to live on the surface of the earth. Will have to go under, and saintly people will basically disappear. Those who are saintly, they will take a better birth and eventually go back to Godhead. And those who are demonic, they will reside and rule, and this will be a bad place, riot with crime and degradation. And we can see some hints of a future to come, that this place is becoming like cities are full of crime, and people are lonely and depressed, and they don't know, they don't have any proper leadership, so they don't know what to do. Even those who are innocent are paying the price for those who are guilty. So we are fortunate to be able to live in a place like Gita Nagari, where the moral goodness is prevalent, even if we may not think that way. Prabhupada said that just by living with cows, one can achieve the moral goodness. So the moral goodness makes life a lot better, is a lot closer to transcendence that it isn't. So by living in association with other devotees that are practicing this sattvic lifestyle, one can actually become imbued with the desire to improve. Because this idea that it's been propagated for the last couple of generations, where parents tell their children, "You are perfect." No, we are not perfect. And to say something like that to a child is damaging, because that means there is no room for improvement. You're perfect the way you are. So why bother improving? You're already perfect. This is wrong. This is a very, very bad teaching. No, we are not perfect. We are imperfect, and we should strive to improve our present condition and to be better. So in this case, Jad Bharata didn't want to deal with the world, really, because he got messed up. Even as a king, he was very advanced. He achieved the stage of Bhava, and he fell down due to attachment to a deer. And then he was born as a deer, as payment for always thinking of a deer instead of thinking of Krishna. But because he was very advanced, because he was a devotee, he was gifted the consciousness of an advanced human being instead of having the consciousness of a deer, which we see deer all the time. They're just, as Prabhupada said, the only activity in common between animals and humans is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and that's all they do. And when they're even when they're eating, they're in fear, as we throw some things to the forest here for a deer and the squirrels to eat, and they come and they're always on guard, looking around, see that they're not going to be hunted, or it's just a terrible life. Imagine if you were, if it was lunchtime and you went to the prasadam hall and you spent your entire lunch looking around, making sure nobody's going to come and shoot you, or that some larger human will come and take your food. It's like being in prison somewhere. It's a horrible life. So being an animal, it may look cute, but it's a terrible life. But Jad Bharata chose to live like a man animal, just not be involved with the world at all. Decided not to speak. There is a tendency for humans to vibrate the tongue, talking and eating and accepting palatable foods and rejecting unpalatable foods. There's that tendency there. And he didn't exercise it at all. There was one spiritualist or pseudo-spiritualist that was somewhat popular during the 70s. His name was Meher Baba, of course, from India. India exports this kind of people. And he decided to stop speaking. And again, this is some manufactured, just some figment of his imagination. There is no advantage to not speaking. He took a vow of not speaking. According to the Nectar of Devotion, mauna, not to speak, means only speak about Krishna. So this Meher Baba, he decided not to speak, but of course, it was a manufactured process. But then he got a tablet, a piece of wood, like a little blackboard and chalk, and that's how he would communicate. So he was, instead of speaking, he decided to write. So he was still communicating. He couldn't stop. Just like some people, most of us, at one time or another, decide, this is not good for me, like sugar, cake, ice cream, whatever it is, bread, whatever put your sight into and decide, okay, I'm not gonna have any more because it's making me fat or it's making me sleepy or it's making me stupid, whatever it is. So we decide to quit, but then we cheat and then we go back to it. So this is a constant struggle that people have, and those who want to practice spiritual life, they cannot manufacture anything. They have to use the descendant process to accept it from self-realized souls. And this is a process. That's why everybody has to accept a guru. They even say that he who is his own spiritual master has a fool for a disciple. Okay. I've spoken enough. I'm going to be like Mehar Baba and shut up. Any questions or comments from our learned audience?
I think I have a question.
Remind me that I have to share a dream with you. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for a nice class. Yeah, I am reminded by this story of a dreadfully unfortunate event in the life of Srila Prabhupada. And I'm wondering if maybe you know some details about this, because I heard just the most brief mention from Srila Prabhupada, and I don't really know very much about it, but Srila Prabhupada explained that he himself had he had a son that was I don't know, intellectually challenged. I don't know whether he had Down syndrome or some such thing. And one day he simply disappeared, just vanished. And it's suspected that he was kidnapped by dacoits like these fellows, because it's a common practice. Have you ever heard anything about that?
No, Prabhu. First time I hear it.
Oh, well, yeah. Yep, Srila Prabhupada had one of his children kidnapped, never saw him again.
Wow.
Imagine that, and what a horror. Anyway, there's lots of dreadful things that go on in India if you spend any time there. Nowadays, I think the devotees are probably sheltered to a large extent from some of the weirdness that goes on, because we have well-established temples and large compounds where the devotees are associating primarily with one another and not wandering around the countryside by themselves and getting into unusual predicaments. But there was a time earlier in the movement when we were charged with the responsibility of doing various types of preaching work, which took us traveling all over India to every nook and cranny. And there were lots of unusual encounters that the devotees had, a lot of sometimes hair-raising adventures. And, you see, of course, that there's lots of imagined practices, made up um, observances. Sometimes imaginary deities are worshipped, and modes of worship that are also fabricated. But there's also um, activity that is genuine. It's not what is prescribed for Vaishnavas, but there are demonic practices, and some of this is outlined in Vedic literature. There are, practices for every type of human being, all different types of mentalities. Not everything in the Vedas is appropriate for the devotees, but all types of knowledge is there. And so there are also all kinds of practices of black arts. There's the worship of Kali, of course, and Durga, uh, but also a lot of ghost worship and the worship of various powerful demons. And it's not imaginary. It's real stuff. And the practitioners of these, the individuals that indulge in these types of practices derive various types of benefits, or what they regard as benefits. They get what they're looking for. Sometimes they achieve some special, unusual power or ability. And we used to encounter a lot of weird stuff, all kinds of people with various mystic powers, engaged often in varieties of nefarious activity, and sometimes giving a lot of trouble to the devotees. And we learned that you have to be very careful. There are ways that you can be harmed. I think there was a time when devotees were kind of naive and thought that I don't have to worry about this or that. Krishna will protect me. But you can't be reckless, we don't just go walking across a highway without looking both ways. You have to be able to anticipate that, there is real danger, and take the appropriate steps to avoid that. But early in the movement, there were lots of things we didn't know, and India was new to us, and there's a lot of strange things going on there. You can find practically anything going on there. There are actually cannibals in India. There are people who eat other human beings. There are people who perform all kinds of human sacrifices. There are people who are worshiping all kinds of ghosts and demons, and bizarre things go on. People disappear, not infrequently. Sometimes body parts are found discarded here and there. It's actually it can be quite terrifying. There are places where people are afraid to ever go out at night, because at night all of the ghost worshipers are active. They're everywhere on the streets doing their various things, and people are very much afraid of them. We had a preaching center in a place where there were scores of these people who would gather at night, and bizarre things would go on. There was one guy who would sit on the ground and sever his foot off, and then he would collect the blood from his leg in a pot and offer it to some ghost, and then magically his foot would be reattached, and he'd perform the same ritual again on a subsequent night. One time we were invited to we're always getting invitations to do kirtan or speak somewhere, and people would feed us, which is, the proper etiquette. But sometimes we were tricked into becoming someone's sacrificial lamb. One time someone sent a vehicle to pick us up from the Calcutta temple, and drove us for hours and hours into the jungle. And we eventually arrived at some tiny village somewhere way out in the jungle. And very peculiar place. There were scores of women, just a huge number of women. There were only about a handful of men or less. We did a kirtan, and they afterwards asked us to follow them for what they said was prasad. They led us into what was like there were only these mud huts, bamboo and mud huts, cow dung and so on. And this one hut had a basement. It was basically a hole in the ground. And they led us into this place and sat us on some like kusha mats, and they offered us what was supposed to be prasad, and it was like havisha. It was like a khichdi with no spices, no salt, nothing. It was bland and very peculiar. And afterwards, we left feeling a little inebriated, and we were suddenly mobbed by hundreds of women. They descended on us in a colossal mob of hundreds of individuals who all began touching our feet. And there was nothing we could do to stop it. There was no way to escape. There was no way to get out of the crowd. They all rubbed their hands and faces all over our feet. And then gradually, suddenly, they all disappeared. Everyone disappeared. We couldn't find a single person anywhere in the village. And we got a taxi ride back into Calcutta, which was supposed to be paid for, but we were cheated. They didn't pay the driver, and so we had to fight with the driver over the payment. Subsequently, we got into the ashram, and everyone was overcome with intense fatigue, very intense fatigue, and almost as though we were forced. Everyone lay down on the floor and promptly passed out. And once we passed out, everyone had a horrible, ghastly dream. We all had the exact same dream. It was that we were abducted and bound in one of these mud hut basements, where there were implements displayed for human sacrifice, and someone offered us a human skull filled with fermented human blood. And a powerful force took us over as though we were possessed by a ghost, and we were forced to reach out and take that skull and drink the blood. And when we consumed the blood, we could feel that all of our bodily vitality was being drained out of us. Some ghost was nourishing himself on our vitality. It was a horrible experience, absolutely horrible experience. We were forced to do this, and there was no way to resist it. There was nothing we could do to stop it. Went on for quite some time, and afterwards we regained consciousness. Everyone was shocked at what happened, and individuals began telling a story of what they had just experienced, and we immediately realized we had all experienced exactly the same thing. We were completely drained for days afterwards. We could barely chant Hare Krishna. A lot of peculiar things like that would happen out of nowhere. While waiting at a train station, someone would come up and stand in front of us and open a box with something or other in it that we couldn't directly perceive, and once again we'd feel our bodily energies getting drained out of us. A lot of peculiar things. There were people who had the ability to control your mind and your body by their mystic power, and they would sometimes abduct people and abuse them in various ways. A little bit scary, so we had to learn to always keep the shelter of the holy names. We took our tilak very, very seriously, because that's the standard Vaishnav kavacha. Tilak is not just a decoration, it's for your protection. It's very important protection. You apply tilak to 12 specific points on the body, and as you apply it, you are supposed to apply the holy names. The names of Lord Vishnu are applied to each of those 12 points on the body for your protection. It's a kavacha. That kavacha was very, very important to us, because we were regularly subject to all kinds of attacks. People would send ghosts after us, either because they didn't like us or to take advantage of us. We had a lot of very peculiar experiences, and some of it was quite terrifying. So these things are still, Srila Prabhupada said that there are still witches in India, like Putana, who have all kinds of mystic powers. They actually murder children. They abduct children to drink their blood, because young people have tremendous vitality, youthful vitality, and so their blood is particularly valued by Putana is basically a vampire. There are still such individuals in India. They're actually real live, honest to goodness vampires. And they actually drink human blood. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Things go on that people would have a hard time believing in the Western world, because it's so unusual, so fantastic. They would think this is the stuff of some novel or a movie, but this doesn't happen in the real world. But you see these things in India. Just like there are yogis, some of them very powerful, and they do extraordinary things. I have seen a man cause a waterfall to flow backwards. I have had people walk up to me and stand in front of me, stare into my eyes, and verbalize every thought that came into my head as it arose. They could read my mind with perfect clarity and repeat everything that came into my head. There's, there's all kinds of unusual things that are beyond the scope of what we consider normal in the West, and a lot of it is hard to understand or relate to, but these things are going on. It's a wide world of unusual and bizarre things, and not much of it is known in the West, but in India, people know about these things. They have experience, or they've heard about it. Friends, relatives will tell them and warn them about this or that. To this day, there's still a lot of bizarre practices, a lot of very demonic stuff, very tamasic sorts of things go on. And, so things like this attempted sacrifice of Bharat is that also still goes on to this day. It's hard to believe, but it's true. These kinds of things actually happen. I've gone off on a wild tangent here, but
well, you should consider getting a job with the India's Ministry of Tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not only particular to India. I've seen I joined the movement in Brazil, and in one they have these people too, these witches and wizards, and the son of one main guy like that joined the movement, and he just cursed the kid, and it was the ghosts were haunting everyone in the ashram every night. It was we tried everything we could, put pictures of Lord Nishingadev, offer incense, have a magnetized key and water and achamans and the whole thing, and the whole ashram was really disturbed because of the curse upon the kid, who eventually left. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about a dream. This was a better dream than all these hobgoblin stuff, which I know is there. It's just that we are so far removed, apparently, at least in the West. I was dreaming about, you were asking a question that you were asking about true humility. And I said, only when you chant the holy name without any expectation, any motivation, is that true humility will manifest. Otherwise, it's like a posture, like you pose as if you were humble, like merge bashfulness into humility. Oh, that person is so humble, but it's just someone shy or is pretending to be shy. And as we were talking about that, for some reason I was at a bicycle shop, and there were two black Labradors dogs, and they were jumping really high. I mean, they were jumping 6 feet high and chanting Haribol and Hare Krishna, both dogs, as a, I don't know what it was. It's like a proof that you don't need to be a following vows and or being even human, or just these dogs were chanting purely the holy name without any motivation and any expectation, just like dogs are. They don't expect anything. They're just happy to be themselves. Anyway, that was my dream right tonight. right before I woke up this morning. So I don't,
Interesting.
yeah, that's what it was. Interesting. All right, let's wrap it up.
Well,
Go ahead.
I had a pet Labrador who used to
Oh.
jump 6 feet in the air out of sheer joy.
Wow, look at that. Wow, that's strange. All right, anything else? Any other questions or comments, please? All right, also, there's a comment by Gore that confirming that these things are still being practiced in India today, even among devotees. My wife has been attacked by some practitioners of these arts. Yeah, there are some black arts. We chant Hare Krishna. Actually, there was one time that a gentleman that attended was in Tallahassee, and he said he couldn't sleep at night. He was being attacked. So I took a bunch of our devotees to his house with Mridanga and Conchal and Chamara, and we just chanted Hare Krishna inside the house. It went forever, maybe for about 20 minutes, half an hour. Just sprinkle Ganges water and blew the Conchal, and that was it. The man could sleep from that night on. So that was nice. That Prabhupada said he was ghost proof, that by chanting Hare Krishna. And I've experienced when we were being attacked, and or some other times in other tamasic places, I would chant Hare Krishna in my dream, or whenever I was feeling the pressure of some being, and they go away. And you have to really chant with, with life and soul. All right. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
Srila Prabhupada tells a story about renting a house that was haunted. No one wanted to rent the house because it was known to be haunted, and so it was offered very inexpensively. So Srila Prabhupada took it, and he said he didn't care about the fact that it was haunted, but he confirmed that it was in fact haunted, and so he simply chanted, and by that chanting, the ghost left. He explained to us that ghosts cannot remain wherever there is the chanting of the holy names. In Shastra, it says that when the holy names are recited, the ghosts and demons flee like leaves, like dried leaves being blown by the wind.
In San Francisco, I don't think it was the first temple, which is a laundromat now, but I think it was the second temple. It used to be a funeral home with draining tables and the whole thing, and that place was pretty scary. And so the devotees kept a close guard on chanting. They were chanting very intently because the place was really, really polluted. Okay, on that note, we should end here before we get some unexpected visitors, and not for a retreat, that is. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, the Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.